All
Aye.
right, so wait, that's, what time is it? I can't remember what.
7:21.
7:21. Let's open the meeting of the Ag Committee. Um, Do we have an agenda?
It's basically the same as last time.
Okay,
Where we're doing our old business,
right.
and we might have some updates, possibly.
Yeah, well, that's, so, as we all will know, at the last meeting, we had 3 people here, and there was an issue about riding horses, and they poop, and some, there were people who, there were more than just this guy at the top of the hill. There were other people involved as well who would, but at the end of the day, and please correct me if you think I'm gone off the hook here, but the problem wasn't so much with them and the other people on the road, because they were in fact removing it from the road, and that's you can't, there's nothing to tell you that you have to do that beyond that to get it off the road.
Right.
And it didn't appear to me, and again, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but it didn't appear to me that the people on the road were all that upset.
Right.
They weren't talking about anybody. To me, there was a couple, and that couple got off their horse when it happened and got it off the road.
Right.
The other lady is an elderly, I wouldn't say elderly, but she's an older woman, and
Right. She couldn't get back on the horse.
she's a very small
Right,
lady, and
yep.
she couldn't get back on the horse.
Right.
She had to have a platform to get on and off.
Right.
So what she would do is she would go home and put her horse away, and then come back and remove it.
Right. Which is above and beyond.
Which, yeah,
Yeah.
But those 3 were, in my mind, doing everything they could do to do that. And we are a right to farm community,
Right.
and the very purpose of that is so that people understand that there's going to be animals and people riding horses, and the cow's going to get loose every once in a while, and
Right.
the llama's going to come down the road. So those things happen.
Yeah.
The problem was the guy at the top of the hill, where he had the whole top of the hill minus somewhere in the middle. There was a
Access.
road there that was, it was a point of entry, and you could get across his property. What he it's not his property. He's got 2 pieces of property, but he doesn't have. That's not all one.
Right.
Now he maintains that, and that's good, great that he maintains it. But apparently he's the one that called up to and
Yes.
reported him.
Right. I wonder if it.
I thought we told them, listen, because I'd never heard of it until that night, and I just told them, I said, just call me
Right.
when that happens, because we went around to every when we got this in, and people thinking that we were trying to take over the town, and we made it really clear
Right.
that we had we couldn't do anything. But what we would do is we would to go to all of the committees in town, and when someone gives them a complaint that is relative to agriculture, that give us a chance to go fix it.
Right.
And that's been a long time ago, and we've been able to fix it all the way till here.
Right.
So now I guess the thing I would say at this point is that it's not probably going to happen again
Right.
until next winter, because they have a riding rink that they can use But when the snow's,
Right.
2 feet deep, they have a place to ride, they go out on the road. And I mean, I've had the horse place down from I see them all the time coming up the road.
Right.
And I never once seen horse manure or cow manure or anything else on that road.
Right.
And that somebody had it on there, so they must have taken it off. So.
Right.
So I think right now that issue
Until
is just
next year.
Yeah, until next winter,
Yeah.
when we'll probably get into it again.
So the regulation is that if the horse poops on a public road, you have to clear it off the road?
No.
There's not a regulation
Yeah.
that was just a courtesy.
A courtesy.
So if somebody comes to me and says, this guy they're pooping all over my road out there, and there's no regulation to tell them that they can't do that because
Right.
we're a right to farm community.
Mhm.
However, I would tell them, hey, come on, let's go halfway here.
Right.
Get it off the road.
Yep.
And
Now, what about horse trails that are not roads? That's not required. It's my
No.
understanding.
It's not
No.
required at all,
Right.
honestly. I guess as
there
long
is
as
no
it's
there's no as long as the horses are allowed on that trail, it's a horse
Right.
trail.
Right,
'Cause-
right. That has to be a designated equestrian trail.
Right.
if it's like town, if it's a road, it's town
Right, if
land.
it's a road.
So then it's under the right to farm jurisdiction. So
Right.
it's allowed. There couldn't be a fine or something.
Yeah.
But
Right.
we're also trying to be neighborly.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
This whole thing started years ago, and it was I think it was a state that brought the issue forward, and the problem was that it was they never told us what town this was, but the town was growing, and then some divisions were put in, and so one night this guy's driving home with his Cadillac or whatever it was, and he drives goes into his garage, puts the garage door down, goes in, has supper, goes to bed, comes out in his garage, and it smells like crap
Mm-hmm.
because he rode across a cow pat, probably of some
Yeah,
sort.
right.
So he decided he was going to sue the town,
Mm-hmm.
and the town was not. So he tried to sue the people who. It was a farmer going down the road with manure in the back of his
There you
truck.
go.
Is
Right.
what it was.
Right.
And so, this thing, and at that same time, there were several other people in this part of the state that were having these kinds of problems, where they had their farm,
Right.
a couple of houses start, and to be honest with you, it was being exacerbated by farmers who got all pissed off and moved their dump of manure closer to the fence. So, wasn't helping the problem at all. So anyway, so that's what we did, and it's been. Now in the interim, we have gained a little bit more power
Right.
to correct things.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is good.
I had the guy at down here at the old, where New Westmer, where the church is that they're going to be redoing, and when you get to that intersection, if you go straight on 68, and there's a house right on the left, and then if you got off and went the other way, there's a little house on the right, and the little house on the right was a little old lady from, whatever, and the other was this guy and his wife, and they were running. They had chickens, and they just ran around, and There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly legal to do that. It was, but this guy had a bunch of roosters, and they were coming over onto her property at 4 in the morning, and and she didn't know what to do. And she was not mad or anything. So what I did is I just went up to the guy at his door and just asked him if he ever considered putting a fence there, and just because this elderly woman is, being awakened, and
Right.
and because we're on television, I'm not going to tell you what he told me to go do.
Right.
So the next time that I got a call on that issue, I went there, and this guy's wife answered.
Yep.
And I told her, I was just trying to find a way to fix this. And she looked me in the eye and she said, "Oh God, please make him get rid of those chickens." She hated them.
Right.
Well, he eventually did it, but he also eventually sold the place,
Right.
and made sure that I knew that it was me that run him out of town.
There you go.
And I didn't run you out of town. I had nothing. I had no way I could run you out of town. You weren't doing anything wrong. I was just asking you to be a good neighbor.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so this Ag Commission, I think, has done good things in this town. I don't think many people know that,
Right.
but it's getting worse, because if you get on the town blog, the Hubbardson people thing, there's a lot of people that don't understand why we can have people spreading manure or whatever it is they spread, and why do we have all these, it's just crazy.
We'll just have to educate people, I
Yeah,
suppose.
it's an educational thing.
Yeah.
And then we discussed the fact that that how it was going to be controlled was that when realtors sold a house or property to someone in the town,
Right.
then they were obligated to tell them that it was a right to farm town and what that meant.
Right.
And we all agreed that we didn't really know that the town ever took a position of doing that or getting that word out.
Right.
And we thought we were going to take a look at trying to get some kind of a brochure. I think we discussed that we were going to look at. And I've been looking at it a little bit too.
I have an update.
Okay.
So I was able to talk to the Economic Development Committee, and they want to do a similar thing, like a new resident packet. So they're willing to help us print it.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So,
So do they want us just to be on their?
they're wanting to do like a small business guide and stuff like that too, in addition. So if we
Okay, so
could be.
they're going to hand some, and they're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 things in it. And,
Yes,
Okay.
right, but our brochure will be a part of it, and they will help us get it on the website, so it doesn't all have to be printed out, and then I think we can print it out as well here,
Yeah.
because they have a very nice printer,
Great.
possibly.
Yeah.
If not,
the town will.
They
you
have
can
a
tell them.
larger budget, which
Right.
maybe we should try to get a larger budget.
Well, I was going to talk to. I talked to Dave about it last year, and he told me to wait until Ryan came back. So, and I know Ryan really well,
Good,
and he's going to be so happy because this memorial thing was his idea,
right,
and then he got sent to Washington
right,
for a year, and he's going to come home to something that's really going to be spectacular. So,
nice.
yeah.
That is great. And we just are stacking up different agendas here. So it'd be nice, because even if we got grants for them, at least we could have the money to operate and then get it reimbursed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other neat thing is, I don't know if it would happen this year, but as a potential location, possibly Pinecrest,
For,
our social.
oh, we use it.
Yeah.
The Lions Club uses it.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Because it's kind of open too, and there's like a picnic table
Yeah.
and it's covered, and we could take the picture.
It's pretty, they're pretty, we had to do a lot of things, spend a lot of money to get permission to go up there and
Oh.
for our meetings,
Oh, you did?
but I know the guy, so I could mention that to him.
And maybe we could, you know, if he did need something, we could at least know what that is and try to allocate for that,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Because it would be a really great space for it, especially with COVID, because it's kind of indoor-outdoor.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
I'll see if I can talk to him and just see what the possibility would be.
Yeah, that'd
I
be
mean,
nice.
we had, you know, just like everybody else in town, they have kids that break things and
Right.
on purpose.
Right. Yep.
And a couple of years ago, they went, somebody went down there for a picnic. They got a pond on that property.
Right.
And they went down to the pond, and all the picnic tables, chairs,
Oh,
or anything were in
that's
the
awful.
pond. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awful.
So we put together a plan to because we were, you know, we were paying them
Mm-hmm.
to be there,
Yeah.
and we just said, hey, you know, listen, we'd like to put all the money that we raise to the town, so why don't we trade that? We'll rebuild all your tables, we'll
Oh.
get that all done, and so, you know.
You bartered.
Yeah, and so if they have a problem that they can't deal with, that we are capable of dealing with, you know, because we've got people, and we got enough people with enough different kinds of backgrounds that we can usually
Right.
do something about that. So I'll do that. We have a meeting coming up next Wednesday, so.
That would be splendid.
Yeah.
That'd be really great.
If he's there,
Mhm.
if not, I'll call him.
Cool. That'd be amazing. Do you have any update for the bylaw committee? Is that what you
The
call
ad
it?
hoc bylaw committee group, have another meeting coming up next Monday night, 6:30.
Okay.
The last meeting, basically what I'm gathering from the meeting I attended, the gist of it is that there's no zoning for agritourism or ecotourism or anything of that sort in town. And the town, what I would get from the meeting was the town wants to see how they can monetize having agritourism in town.
Ah,
That's the gist of what I got out of the meeting.
Well, that would be a positive, I think, for us. They did it because most of these towns around us that have, you know, things that are probably a lot beyond what we'll ever do, but you know, they just spend thousands of dollars and the years to try to convince their select boards or the planning committee to let them do that. It's always better to get it done first before you try to get it, because
right.
it takes a long time.
Yeah.
Is there anything in that they're talking about restraining, trying to?
Limiting what is allowed?
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know. It wasn't really a very in-depth meeting. Still kind of gathering information, but again, from what I could see, information that wasn't relevant really to what the topic was.
Yeah.
So we will see where it goes with this next meeting. I did not necessarily see it as a ag-friendly meeting.
Well, I tell you what,
Uh-oh.
if they decide that they're going to step across the line on this with the right to farm, it's going to be a war. It won't be a gun war, but it'll be a war.
There, like I said,
The state has one that they're looking at that comes pretty close to that. And of course, they're not looking at rural little road here.
Right.
But, you know, the law that they passed impacts us. So we should watch that.
Well, it was my understanding that the very first draft was just a word-for-word copy of what Rutland had passed.
well, that was my understanding also.
Right, and that looked pretty ag-friendly to me as I read that.
That's not necessarily what I was gathering from the meeting itself.
Yeah.
Ag-friendly is, yes, you can have a cow, yes, you can have a pig, yes, you can have a horse.
Right.
What they are trying to deal with is how can, if you're trying to monetize having a cow, having a pig, having a horse,
Right.
how the town can get money for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got from it.
Yeah.
So not necessarily being ag-friendly, how to monetize having farms in your town.
Mm-hmm.
And how to
To me, it looked like
limit what can or cannot be done,
Right.
or give guidelines for what can or cannot be done.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't come across as being totally ag-friendly.
No, it didn't to me either. I mean, when you read it and just look at the language, you know, it looks okay, but you have to get permissions. You got to have
Right.
all these things, and you know what that is? That's money.
Right.
They're going to ask you to pay They're going to ask me
For permission.
on our farm. We sell lamb meat and wool yarn. They're going to ask me to give them money for me to do that. That's ultimately what's going to happen.
Right, that's basically the gist of what I got from the meeting. And
So it doesn't, to me, when I read it, it didn't cross the line of be a right to farm, because you got a right to farm,
yeah,
but you got to, I mean, it gets down to.
but if you're going to attempt to make money at farming,
Right.
we're going to take some of that.
And if you have an event at your house or on your farm,
Right.
you got to pay for a fee to the town and get a permit.
If that's the case, then there will be less and less going on.
Including if you were going to have a wedding on it specifically says, if you're going to have a wedding on your property.
Should put something in if it's like a family thing, you know?
Well, I mean, it's,
Because it'd be really awful if
we need to
farmers had to
underst-
have permits to have
I
family
always-
parties.
you know, I always approach this with the fact that the people that are doing it are not ag people.
Right.
And because why? I mean, you're on your farm and you're working and you don't have the time to do it.
Right.
And so what it means that we need to keep an eye on it, and I'll trust you to do that for us. And then when
It seems like it got taken out of our hands because we were doing the ag bylaw thing, and then all of a sudden it got all commercialized
yeah,
with this commercial overlay thing, which, you know,
yes, sir.
You know where the lights are too.
Yeah, the ones back here and these. Yeah.
That can stay on. All right.
If I can't get them all off, I'll just break the tubes.
There you go.
Okay, loosen them up. See you later.
Right.
But I suppose anywhere though, they would be, like, for short-term stay, they would be collecting some sort of tax, which would be a benefit for the town. I think that's like kind of the direction we're going, is that correct?
As far as for like an Airbnb type of thing, again, as far as it's gone with the one meeting I attended, there's been 2 meetings. They're just gathering background information at this time. It hasn't really, anything has been discussed. But just what I'm gathering from the background information is it's a way for the
Permit
town to
and tax.
monetize anything that goes on in town.
I have a good friend here in town too. He's not in ag, but he's asked me a couple times if we have a representative, because he could, you know. So I'll talk to him too and just see, and I'll just tell him.
It should go both ways though.
Yeah.
If they're trying to monetize our activities, then they shouldn't stand in the way of our activities. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
If we're paying tax, we're paying the permit, then we should get the red carpet rolled out for us. Not, can't do this, can't do that,
Right.
plus we're gonna collect tax while we put you through the ringer.
Yeah. Well, you know, that should be good, but you know,
Cause it's hard
we're-
enough to make ends meet.
We have more and more people coming into town who moved out of another town because they didn't like what was going on, and then they get here and they want everything that they had in their town.
I see.
We got a lot of new people in town, and who doesn't, you know, there's 2 or 3 raising hell all the time about Rieta.
Okay.
You know, what the hell is that in there? It's you know, just trash, and I mean, it's amazing. Now, the nice thing, when they do say that on the internet, they get about 20 or 30, you dumbass. So,
It was here before you were.
yeah.
I've noticed that the more people complain, the less they vote.
Isn't that true?
Well, I got some good friends in this town that complain all the time, and never once in my life have I seen them even come to a town meeting.
Right,
And I always point that out.
right.
So,
The good thing is, it seems like a lot of the groups are working on similar things, which is why we're so happy to have you, David, with Open Space. I don't know if you have any updates that.
Not from open space, no, but I have something about emergency preparedness I want to talk about when we get to
Ooh,
that.
yay! I'm excited
Yeah.
about that.
But one of the people on the Open Spaces Committee is on the Economic Committee, so.
This is where I think they approved a meeting.
Mhm.
It's not gonna be every month, it's like, every other month. I believe it's May 11th, but I can double check on that, where you can have a representative and you can kinda share what we're doing and
Yeah.
then see if we can help each other out,
Right.
which would be awesome, because we've just kinda happenstancely figured that
Yeah.
we're working on similar things.
Right, I'm planning on going to that May 11th meeting,
I am too.
Brilliant.
yeah.
Oh,
I am
look at
too.
that, so
Yeah.
we're well
I'm
represented.
not sure who I represent, but.
Well, the nice
All
thing
of the
is,
above.
and I think
Yeah.
you know, it's good that we're represented and you're well aware, cause we're
Yeah.
really going over the same things. So then we can just see if anybody else is like on board as
Yeah.
far as that goes. So,
Okay.
that's a good segue though, so would you like to start with the disaster preparedness?
Oh, sure, are we
Yeah.
ready to move into that?
Yeah, cause I have a little update too, which is great too.
Okay.
Yep,
So, I'm with the Barry Riding and Driving Club,
nice.
and at our annual meeting, we had Roger Louze, Louze,
Okay,
from the MSPCA,
yes,
do a presentation on equine emergency preparedness.
brilliant,
And of course, that could
Sure.
tie in with, other animals as well.
absolutely.
And what the MSPCA does is they
Is
have,
there a copy of that?
I don't have a copy of it,
But maybe they
but,
do.
but, well, let me
Yes,
continue.
okay, sorry.
And so what the MSPCA is, they have a 2-day program. That's $1,000 a day. It's a little bit expensive, but the first day, they say you can just do yourself. In other words, what he suggests is that we get the various fire departments in the area together and do basic training, like how do you get a horse out of a burning barn? Because once the fire department shows up, they will not allow the owner into a burning barn.
Right.
They will not allow it. But the fireman might not necessarily know how to get a horse out.
Right.
You know, like, first thing they want to do is wrap the rein around their hand.
What a great point.
Right, so that they get dragged back into the burning building when the horse panics, right? That sort of thing. And he was saying that Royalston, of all places, has an excellent emergency preparedness plan, where they've got the special Anderson lifts, or whatever, for horses,
Oh,
and they're willing to share that equipment.
isn't that wonderful?
And so the idea is that Barry Riding Drive would like to get a bunch of towns together, right? Have a training program for the fire departments, right? Where they actually go into a barn and practice removing the animals, and then then work from there on just training people on what he's calling small emergencies. In other words, a single barn that's on fire or a single weather event, right?
Such a wonderful
Right.
point there, because you forget that once the fire department's on the scene,
Right.
You're not supposed to go.
They're in charge.
right?
But they might not necessarily know what they're doing. So the idea is to get a
and
number.
nor would they want to deal with that situation without practice.
Right, exactly. And then the second thing he was talking about was larger scale disasters, where you have more than one barn, like say a hurricane where
Sure.
3 or 4 barns get flooded. What do you do then? You know, how do you move those animals to higher ground or whatever?
Right?
Right. That's a little bit more difficult to work out. But you don't want to wait till a hurricane happens.
No, you don't.
You want to have that.
You want to know,
Yeah.
you know, those kinds of things don't happen normally for the whole town.
Right.
And so, you know, I would want to know, you know, if it hits me,
Right.
who could I call that would have a space?
Right,
that I could
exactly.
keep my-
Exactly. And so the thrust of what he was saying on that was make sure that the police department has a list of phone numbers. Right. They can at least start making chain calls and, you know,
I think
That
resolve
would be
that.
They
that
have
could be
mine.
one of the first things we do.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Barry Riding is interested in starting to organize this. I thought,
Right.
oh, gee, this would be something we'd
This
want
is
to get
wonderful.
involved.
Yeah.
You know,
So yay,
and focusing on the fire departments in the various towns in the area.
right? Yeah, and that works right in with. Does Barry have their own animal control? But that's okay, because the most important thing is we should go approach Royalston,
Right.
because we can emulate it to
Right.
all the
Exactly.
surrounding towns.
Exactly.
And I made a little progress in, I'll have more time to dedicate it because I haven't gone out there yet, but I found out that we do have an emergency service guy and he's in the DPW. His name is Dennis. My phone has no internet right now, or I would look it up. But he has a 3-year-old list from the state with
Good.
the animals.
Great.
The other thing I thought of, and this was just like kind of epiphany sort of thing, and I did briefly talk to her about it, is approaching the vets, because
Right.
they have all the best records.
Exactly.
They have all the records. They
Right.
know addresses, they know how old the animals are, they know all of that.
Right.
And she was willing to put in her 2 cents, and had also mentioned that they had done, it was actually her predecessor, but a similar thing that was on video online for equine and farm animal, like what to do to evacuate, what kind of plan, what kind of supplies, all of that. And that would be a big leg up if we could get our hands on something like that, that we could link to individuals, because there are a lot of supplies and things you kind of need.
Right.
And that would also be good for humans too, just like I don't have, if you have a 2nd-story house, having that ladder thing, or
Right.
you know what I mean, just
Right.
like things like that. And I would have never thought about needing to train fire, but that's like numero uno,
Yeah.
right? Or even getting a volunteer on the department that could do that, because they do have this guy, they call him Animal. They literally call him Animal because he's the one who has to handle like all the cats out of the trees and stuff,
Yeah.
because he's just, so they call him in. He's the grasshopper guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But that's something to think about.
Mhm.
Like you have the animal whisperer that you call,
Right.
and then we could work on the numbers.
Right.
Ooh, I like how this is shaping up.
So,
Do you have an ag email, or do you check the mail, or?
I do.
Oh, good. So then maybe,
I get everything from the state.
so maybe, 'cause we would need a point of contact for the Berry Riding Club.
right.
Um,
I'll bring it up at the next meeting.
yeah, and then,
It'd be nice to go over and talk to them and just
Yeah.
get an idea.
yeah.
We're just starting to formulate the idea, and we think like maybe in the fall do this. That's sort of
Yes.
the time frame we're thinking.
And there is a state. I got the website. Again, I haven't had much time to dedicate to this, but they do have a state plan,
Mm-hmm.
and they have funding to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna look into that, because they have, you know, where they can be dispatched.
Right.
It has to do with the MSPCA, but I haven't had a chance, but, it was also a trail riding club, they were saying, and they gave me the website, I
Yep.
just haven't looked into it.
And when you're talking to them about, helping us,
Mm,
because this happened to me many, many years ago,
Mm.
before you got here.
mm,
We had we had a barn fire,
that's right.
and I lost 14 of my 15 stud rams, and probably would have lost them anyway. But the problem was that when we bought the farm, how they responded to fires was they would send the thing out, and you've got volunteers all over the town,
Mm,
and the volunteers would just say, "I'm on my way, bring my equipment,"
right.
and then they come but shortly before my fire,
Mm,
the rules changed, and they all had to go down to the fire department and get their stuff on and then come.
right.
So
That slowed it down.
yeah, there were 2 people living right across the road from me,
Mm,
and if they could have just come over and helped me, we might have saved some of those animals.
Mm.
right.
So
That's a really good point. Is that still in place?
yeah,
Oof.
I think that's it's one of those things that I don't, I'm sure that the firefighters of the world, going over there and getting involved before you have your equipment is, gonna hurt a lot of firefighters. So I understand what they were doing,
Right.
but no one ever told us that they were changing that.
Mm,
So I always had this feeling that my 2 neighbors were gonna come charging across the street and at
Yeah.
least help me.
this is just an idea, but maybe the animal whisperer person
Yeah.
could have the equipment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
They'd like let them have a set or something like that, or have some sort of, maybe there's some sort of, it's a good point, but
You're not gonna get the fire department to buy into that. They're gonna, unless the guy wants to train and be a legal firefighter.
Right.
well, he is. Yeah, he is. Like a volunteer firefighter, but still,
Yeah.
maybe you could have, like an animal, firefighter
Yeah.
dispatched. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that you could,
And I just see us because, we're living on a rock.
right. Exactly.
And so nobody has running water, no one has, we all have our own septic system, we all
Right.
have our own
Exactly.
well. So, there's really hard for them to, and we're dealing with fire ponds.
Right.
So, we're much more exposed to
We
a
are.
real disaster.
We really are.
that would be my, if I was gonna go trying to get them to, where should we put the money to help the most?
Right.
It would be towns like this.
I feel like people could get really behind this. So then maybe we could have our own response team. I know, like, in the horse world, they, like in Ocala and stuff, they have state sanctioned land that is specifically designated for this type of thing, cause they have so many horses.
Right.
And they fundraise that. But since there's so many towns and there's so many people who love their animals, and we're actually seeing it now, even with the Ukraine, where they're having to leave their animals behind, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching. I feel like it might be a good time to try to kind of raise funds for this, because we could maybe possibly have at least some land that is probably unused anyway, that could be like a higher ground piece of land that we could potentially use in an emergency.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but most of the things that are gonna get us we're a big enough town in area that it's not gonna wipe out the whole town in one blow.
Right.
No.
So we,
But at the same
I
time-
think that it'd be better that we focus or try, I think the easier way to go is just to get the people who have animals and have some area that they keep them in, to just have in their mind that if something goes down, I've agreed that you can do this, you can bring those animals can come there.
Right. That was our initial thing. But then we had the, would there have to be a quarantine and so on and so forth.
Well, yeah, but if your neighbor's house was burning, would you think quarantine? No,
No.
I don't think. If people are going to take a chance to try to save a life, and if it's animal people and animal people talking to get each other, we're gonna. I'm not gonna go try to kill myself, but I'm gonna be there. I mean, the day after that fire, I had
Right.
at least 30 people up there,
It's amazing.
would not let me touch anything.
Right.
Go sit down, Tom.
Right.
So,
Which is wonderful.
yeah.
But at the same time, we want to be prepared.
Mm.
Because, like you even said, there could have been more that could have been saved.
Yeah.
Right. So, we got our work cut out for
Right.
us.
But quarantine's also a consideration, but that could be worked into it.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
could-
I mean.
yeah.
And I think that we kind of could go bigger than our initial scope, in that there's so many towns involved.
Mm-hmm.
Because Barry is a whole nother group, because
Yeah.
they have their own animal control.
Sure.
Mhm.
So we have the 5 towns, and then we include Royalston. Royalston must have another set of towns. It's just there's a lot of potential for working together with these small towns
Right.
to possibly have a centralized
Right.
or potential animal response team
Right,
in an emergency.
right.
Yeah.
Which the state has that, so we might be able to tap into them as far as, okay, we're gonna call, the state emergency response
Mm-hmm.
with the MSPCA.
Right.
And they also can allocate funds, especially if it's declared by the state.
Right.
So at least there could be a procedure that could be, just insert the number,
Right.
basically,
Yeah.
right, which would be awesome. And I love the training idea, and maybe we
Yeah.
could somehow raise those funds
Sure.
somehow.
Well, the idea is that if you get everybody chips in $20 and you have 50 people, then you're covered.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's where I mean there's a lot of potential
Right.
within the animal community, because I think they would really, just the peace of mind, like, hey, I know what to do. I don't have to abandon my animal in a
Right.
crisis.
Right.
Yeah, leave the firefighting to the firefighters.
Yeah, exactly.
And get your animals, the ones you can get into the trailer and out.
Right,
Yeah.
and honestly, that's not their forte, that's not what they're trained for.
Right.
Christ,
Right.
every time there's an animal loose in in at least my side of the town, they call me.
Yeah,
Because I got all over, not this chief, but the chief of police before.
Right.
And I must have passed the word down.
right,
But, the first thing they do is they go chasing.
yeah. That's not good.
And you can't catch sheep if you, or any kind of an animal if you're
No.
chasing them. There's just no way.
Did you see that Clarkson Farm show?
Yes, yeah, I did.
The sheep, that is so funny.
Yeah.
You should check it out. It's like the car guy buys this farm and then he gets sheep just because he doesn't want to mow.
Yeah.
And they
It
give
just-
him a run for his money.
Yeah, they
They're
just-
jumping all the fences and it's so
know.
funny. I knew
Yeah.
you'd get a kick out of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
Okay, well, listen, so you got
Yep.
something
Yep.
you can do for the next
Yep.
meeting?
Yep.
And Keith's,
I'm gonna try to get that list.
okay,
Because then we really have a really good idea. And I think that'll be the trickiest part for all the towns. But we should work with the vets, we should work with the
Right.
clubs, that sort of thing.
Right,
Yep,
right.
that's more the direction, I think,
Right.
is, because they're like, yes, us too.
right.
Yeah, so, yay.
Okay.
Anything else?
I
No?
don't think so. No, because you're gonna, see what we can do about the social, and if not, we'll try to get an alternate location.
Well,
type of thing.
I'll just see if the guy he is actually a caretaker up there. He doesn't live up there, but
Right.
he caretakes. So he kinda knows what's going on. I'll just,
Yeah,
I mean, they have allowed the scouts to have meetings up there in the past, but they've stopped that because they leave it a mess, so.
right. We will definitely not do, we will
No.
leave it better than we left it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you always,
Yeah.
we, Lions, we always do it too,
Right.
so.
Yeah,
it's fine.
wonderful.
We're all big boys and girls.
Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
there's nothing else?
No?
Somebody wanna make a motion to
Move that we adjourn?
Second?
Third.
All.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. It was so good to see you all.
Yep.